to A Path to Partnership Success, the recruitment road ahead for India. We will be discussing how agents and educators have been affected by, but also how they've adapted their recruitment strategies during the COVID-19 pandemic. We will look to the recruitment road ahead for India and what trends are emerging for the remainder of 2021 and 2022. And most importantly, how the relationship between educator and agent has grown and adapted during the pandemic. I'm Stephanie Zimmerman, Senior Agent Relations Manager at ICEF, and I'm joined today by Mr. Sushil Sukhwani, Director of Edwise International, one of India's leading overseas educational consultants, and Mr. Derek Alex, Lead of International Admissions at University of Houston. Thank you both for joining us today. I'd like to start our discussion with you, Sushil. At the outset of the pandemic, students were reluctant to change to online alternatives. As the pandemic and some restrictions continue, has there been a change in the interest and demand for online programs?
Hi, Stephanie, and thanks for having me on this interview along with Derek. And I'm so glad that I could share my thoughts with people from all over the world. I'll go back a little bit to a certain survey which I've been looking at very often. And it was a survey done by uh, Sanam S4, which is a very well known company in India. And they have been running a survey every month on the outlook of Indian students' willingness to take part in an online program. Uh, May 2020, 5% of the students were ready to take an online program. Those students were ready to start in September 2020, 5% only were ready to take part. As we moved along, that number moved gradually to 25% because when students realized by July that they had very little choice, as we went to August, it got higher. And the surprising bit of information is that by September, when everybody realized that it's not that easy, the survey data showed 100%. Well, it wasn't 100% for sure, but the survey data showed that. I guess it would have been, depending on the destination, students were making different choices. We had a different attendance, acceptance as depending on what the governments of the various countries allowed. Like whether Canada allowed students to study a full year while they were abroad. At that time, they had announced it. UK had said they could come in April 21. So that was, very positive. Whereas other destinations like Australia and New Zealand were unclear on their strategy and were not giving students as much value for post-study work, and even not allowing academic programs to be online. So that was a big differentiator. Like the US also had said that the students should travel if they want to have benefits towards STEM. So it was different for different destinations. And the destinations that were welcoming the scenario, accepting pandemic and accepting the difficulties that students were going through, those destinations saw an increasing trend. Now, the same survey, when you start looking at it for November, it went back to 25% because everyone believed that they were all going to be in campus in January. And as we got closer to January, it even got lower. So everyone at that time again said, no, we don't want to study online. And we will only do face to face. So I think learning here is when people had no choice, they accepted online learning because they did not want to take a break and they did not want to stop the academic programs. But when they have a choice, they're not too happy about it. But they will today, because of the amount of exposure online and the necessity to be online, they will accept it as a means to an end. But it's not really a first choice. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I think that in terms of hybrid programs, you make a lot of really, really good points. So, Sushil, what do you think? I mean, do you think that for maybe in the future, even when the pandemic ends and there's the possibility for students to travel on campus again, that many of them will still be interested, or some for a certain kind of student, in hybrid programs?
No, hybrid programs is a necessary evil the way I look at it. It's not something that they will choose. It's because everybody in the world now believes that hybrid is the way to go. Students will accept it, but the mental position of students is they would yet like face to face class. they when they want to go overseas to study, a big part of it is face face to face classroom experience, campus experience, living out there, and they miss it, and they don't believe that they should be paying the same amount. So if it's hybrid, yes, Derek said that people might come down with a lower price fee for the hybrid semester or hybrid content, but it's yet not really what the students want. They will accept it because they have to. Now, if they go overseas and then when they're on the face-to-face class, certain modules are online and giving them certain flexibility, they will accept it because it was always there. I believe some of my friends from US universities told me that an undergraduate program, 10 to 15%, and even some places 20% was always online. It was never face to face. But nobody made a big fuss about it at that time. No one even mentioned that there was that much of a component of online. Right now, people are looking at it very carefully, minutely, whether how much of it is online, how much is hybrid. So Indian students, at least I don't think, are excited about online. When they can save on tuition, they might consider it, but it's yet not a choice.
So then, Sushil, as an agent, you heard what Derek and what his campus are doing. What other strategies would you like to see to ensure that your students feel safe and supported?
So Derek has given the perspective of USA, whereby it's not mandatory to have a vaccine, and also there's no real rules for quarantine. So that's welcoming. It's good for students, and however, students are preferring in India to take the double vaccine, and they have been permitted now by the government of India to take them at a closer interval so that they can travel. When I look beyond the US and I look at UK and I look at Canada, they haven't been very clear about their vaccine strategies, but they're saying that they would give students a vaccine when they arrive. But both the countries yet have quarantine. The UK has uh, present requirement for students coming from countries that are in the red zone, which is India, need to quarantine 10 days, and in Canada it's yet 14. So if that cost of quarantining can be covered. In the case of UK, some institutions are bearing it, Canada not yet. So that's something that we're looking at our university partners to support students in some way. Provide enough accommodation, comfortable accommodation, serviced accommodation so that they can get their meals and everything is comfortable for them. Or the big hope is that both governments or other governments also consider that if a person is double vaccinated and has genuine evidence of it, uh, that is, they can prove it, digitally prove it, and not, you know, something that could be questioned. That kind of student should not be asked to quarantine. That would be great, and they could straight be into class. So that's the only country. Some countries need that. USA has anyway sorted that out. Great.
Well, then let me also stay with you, Sushil. We've talked a little bit about now, what happens to students when they get on campus. So now we want to talk a little bit about traveling, how they're going to get there. We're over a year into the pandemic. Travel still remains a challenge. Many institutions are yet to start their in-person tuition again. Do you have students that are still planning to travel and study abroad the second half of this year? And which destinations and programs are in demand?
So Australia and New Zealand is closed, so no one's planning to travel because they aren't permitted. Uh, from India, presently, you can only fly to Netherlands. Okay, most other countries have blocked us out. We have a lot of flights that travel out of Dubai till the 7th of July. You can't fly to Dubai, and presently you can't travel to anywhere else in Europe or Canada or USA straight. But we can call them commando students who are taking a break in Muscat, Doha, uh, some in Budapest, some in other countries, Baku, and students are going. So I know about students who have traveled to USA and Canada in the last week. So students are really very gung ho to travel. I feel India has gone through a fair correction in the second COVID wave that it's gone through. And from a high of 400,000 cases a day, we are down to 60,000 cases a day. And now the rest of the country is opening up gradually. I'm in Mumbai. We can work 50%, so is Delhi and Gujarat. So I feel within 3 weeks, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, most of India would be no longer under lockdown. Once we are out of the lockdown, international destinations will feel comfortable and open up flights. So the most students, every student, including my son, is looking at traveling in August to USA or September to US, Canada, and UK. Even though visa offices are presently closed, but they're opening soon or they're getting more interviews as we talk. VFS for Canada biometrics opened yesterday. US had no appointments for visas. They were sold out. They've just launched 10,000 visa slots yesterday. And UK is also opening up and accepting forms. So the feeling is honestly that every student who wants to travel this September will be traveling. That's the pulse. And if they don't, as I said, few of them will resist, but I feel majority of them will take online. But I think all guns are for traveling.
So if they are able to travel, you're certain then that you will have your students then, as many as possible, then they'll be going this fall.
Yeah, definitely. They will. I mean, the way the situation is, no one thinks they're not traveling. That's the way it is. So we got to get a quick assessment what the rest of the world decides. But if or unless there's a big third wave or a new variant, something as unexpected as COVID keeps happening again. But for the moment, there's a lot of confidence in vaccines and traveling with vaccines, and I think people will travel.
Sushil, as an agent, what do you see as the driving factors that will get us back to pre-pandemic student enrollments? You've already mentioned a little bit about also vaccination. Is there anything else that you can tell us?
So the pandemic affected many parts of our business cycle or student recruitment cycle. And today, one of the hurdles, even after having gone through the second wave of COVID and vaccination, is about mark sheets and results, test prep exams, etc. So we are not at the numbers that we could be because of such reasons too. So for everything to come back online to run a perfectly smooth academic year in the Indian marketplace, then visas going back to absolutely smooth, no fear of another wave. It's going to be, I guess, a year clearly. But there is a great possibility that 22, the academic year starting September 22 or July 22, we could almost be there. I would say we would not get completely to 2019 numbers, which was possibly one of the best years for India to have students who abroad, but almost there. We would be almost there, and by 23, we would perfectly be there. So, but because we don't know what else happens, there's also economic impact on people. So some people might delay it, funding, academic results. Uh, People didn't do as well in the test prep, but they could not do again the test prep, and they go to the kind of institution that needs a particular test, the timings of such. So once it all absolutely comes back into the same academic streaming that we had always, then things will be, I'm quite sure, back to normal.
Well, thank you. And
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye
Thanks,
bye.